All right, everyone, welcome to the Reseller Island podcast. My name is Jake. We have a very special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick, but we are just here on the island. Sunny is still on an actual island. So I have my local friend Leif filling in today. I'm going to go ahead and let Leif introduce himself real quick.
Thanks for having me on, Jake. My name is Leif. I'm a local reseller here in beautiful southern Utah, as you can see.
Sweet.
I've been reselling for about 2 years.
2 years. Okay, sweet. Yeah. So you actually were after the pandemic, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so typically we like to kind of talk about things that can help everyone in their eBay and reselling. But I was actually thinking that we could just go ahead and interview you, kind of see what reselling is like from a different perspective than just people that have YouTube channels and followings and things like that. So you mentioned already that you've been reselling for 2 years. How many hours do you put into reselling, and what do you want to get out of reselling time-wise eventually?
About 6 to 8 hours a day. Started off slow the first year, just doing it part-time, really. Only putting in maybe like 4 hours a day, including sourcing and listing. But as I've grown, I've gotten better at it, I put more time in, because the time I put in reflects the time, the what I get out of it at the end.
So you started just doing about 3-4 hours a day, including listing, shipping, all that good stuff, and now you've doubled that. You're up to about 6 to 8.
Yeah, comfortably double.
So would you consider this your full-time job, or is it still half of what you do? Or
yeah, it's pretty much my full time right now.
Okay, well, sweet. Yeah, so
Thrown into it.
So you've been doing it for a full 2 years. So honestly, we're about on the same timeline. I've been doing this for about 26 or 27 months now, so just barely over 2 years. How long did it take before you decided, what, I'm doing this pretty much full time?
Well, it took a year to to really get to know how the system works and establish a good healthy routine with it. And it just seemed to take more and more of my time to really to get it to grow. And so I'd say about after the first year I was pretty much committed, into my second.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. That's about the timeline that I followed as well. I worked a little bit for a few months, then ramped it up at like the 6-month mark, and then really ramped it up at like the 9-month mark. And then I've been full time ever since then. And it sounds like you kind of have the same similar.
Right, because I had to slow down what I was doing previously, and transition into just reselling and listing full time.
So what is it that you were doing that you've kind of transitioned away from a bit?
I was a jewelry artist, and I was doing galleries and art shows, traveling around. I had been selling on Etsy for about 10 years prior to that, and things kind of slowed down on that end, got shut down for a couple of years, and so I had to make up the difference somehow. And eBay seemed to be the an easy transition. I was already familiar with online selling, with that aspect of it, but I was traveling less, galleries closed down. It was time to try something else.
So you have been listing on Etsy for 10 years, plus you're going, how far would you like stay within a 500-mile radius for galleries, or were you even going 5-6 states over, or what?
There was about 3 states,
3 states. So you'd go to California, and then you'd also go to like even maybe like Kansas,
Nevada, Arizona.
Arizona, yeah. Okay, sweet. So so you're doing that for 10 years. You're listing a lot on Etsy. You're going to these shows, and then I'm sure the pandemic just wiped out those shows, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you do then?
Well, I was actually pretty busy with my online work. I was getting a lot of custom orders during that time. But then a year after that, it seemed to just come to a dead halt, and the marketplaces, the local shows were really being slow and hesitant to come back. and so I made the switch, hopped onto eBay instead.
So what
But
brought you
I
to Etsy in the beginning?
it was a marketplace for artisan jewelers and so crafters and artsy people. It was
Mhm.
specifically directed towards them in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then they kind of transitioned, and it started to change.
Dude, Etsy in the stock market was wild. It was one of the like biggest gainers, and it's also one of the most tremendous fallers as well. I never hopped into the stock, but I watched it go up like 1,400%, and then it came back down 900. Then it went back up like another 700, and now it's come like all the way back down almost to the bottom again. It's pretty nuts. So, do you sell anything on Etsy anymore, or is that just completely
Yeah,
closed?
yeah. I still have inventory, and I still do custom work. You know, like I'm just a lot more picky about what commissions I take these days.
Yeah,
I'll
that's nice.
always be making art. It's never gonna stop.
So you would say at one point you were full-time custom art artist and dealer, and
Yep.
then you transitioned into reseller part-time, and now you are full-time eBay. You're a full-time reseller and you're a part-time artist and dealer.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
It
that's
it
really
just
cool. I feel like that's what a lot of people are trying to accomplish, whether it's from another business that they own or whether it's a 9 to 5 and they work from someone else. I feel like a big demographic of at least my audience here on YouTube is trying to go from part time to full time, and own their own business. So let's talk about your store size, part time, close to full time, and full time. So what are kind of the numbers along that path?
well, like I managed to grow it up to about 300 to 400, and last fourth quarter I had about 450, and right now I'm just under 400. I've been struggling to catch up to that number again, because I've got a really good sell-through rate. It's
Nice.
almost 1 to 1. We got 368 listed, and I've got 370 sold. You know,
So you're struggling to build your store. Is that because of your fast sell-through rate, or is it because of your inability to source enough items, or a combination of both?
Actually, I would actually say that it's the processing of the stuff that I do. I'm
Okay.
heavily like my number one category is video games and video game accessories, and I do a lot of testing, a lot of cleaning,
Yep.
and honestly a lot of repair work too. I'll spend an afternoon and repair and fix, and that takes time. You've got to make sure that it works 100%. Got to test all the ports, all the functions, and so that keeps it from having from getting it like listed faster. Also
Yeah.
consumer electronics and cameras, those are big for me too, so those take time, and you've got to take the time and make sure that it's all good. That's the biggest time barrier for me, you know because it takes time to resurface 50 DVDs and games and whatnot.
Yeah, it sure does.
Like I
No,
don't know if you've ever
before
turned
we
down a
hopped on this
PS3,
call, I
but it
was
takes a while.
actually before this call, I was actually working on vacuums. And processing is part of the equation here that a lot of people look over, and this is why people develop one of our favorite buzzwords in the community, the death pile. What's been your relationship with death piles?
Oh, we have a living relationship. It's practically my roommate. you know, but I'm comfortable, with a lower standard of files. It's like I've got stacks and stacks, that I can go through, but it's all going to be inventory that I can use on down the line. And
Exactly.
you're not finding as much out there in the wild, because so much of that marketplace has shifted to digital only. That they're not coming across as many, like loose games and those type of electronics out in the wild. you know
Hmm.
but if I've got a pile of repairs, I can get to it, and spend a Sunday afternoon just putting lasers into PS2s.
Yeah, so Leif and I, we live in I would consider it a large town, or a small city.
Yeah.
We've got about what 70,000 people here, and Leif and I
No.
go to the Deseret Industries every single morning. We see each other, and then every once in a while, I just like won't see Leif for like 15 days or 30 days. And then all of a sudden you'll pop back up and I'll be like, where you been? And you're like, oh, it's just just tackling the death pile, getting it taken care
Yep.
of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's super
You
important.
know.
So yeah. So it's interesting. So you're pretty much full time on reselling. So what does is almost every day look basically the same? Or do you like to do like a heavy processing day, heavy listing day, like heavy sourcing days? How do you kind of work your systems?
I do break it up, but like, every day is a sourcing day, except for
Hmm.
Sunday. And but that's only maybe 2 hours tops.
Yeah.
It doesn't take me long to do my runs. Everything after that, it's like 2 hours worth of shipping after that, and then the rest of the day is processing and listing. I will set aside like longer projects, you know, for when I'm more freed up. Instead focus on the stuff that's ready to go. That's going to be a quick, easy test and clean. And get it listed. And also prioritizing, the stuff that has the highest sell-through rate, that gets
Hmm.
my top priority. Like that's the first thing that goes up. I've struggled with draft banks. Like I think I had up to 20 on a regular basis at a time, but then I got depleted during the last fourth quarter, and I'm slowly getting it back up. Like it does help to make it consistent, but also it's more about self-discipline and you know, keeping it where I can maintain
So you are actively trying to grow a draft bank then?
Oh yeah, I always want to keep at least what I sell in a day, in a draft bag ready to go, in case something else comes up, you know.
So do you list the exact same amount of items every single day, or do you just kind of do
No,
however what you have available? What do you kind of do there?
no, if I have a really good easy processing day to where it's just really easy stuff that's ready to go, I will just list it if it's got a high sell-through rate and just get it out in the marketplace. Like a lot of video games will sell, in 24 hours, or 3 days, within a week, so
Hmm.
having it sit for another day doesn't really do anything for me, so I'll just get that up and then keep kind of the slower items in the draft bank. So when I need to, just get some listings up and just pump up that draft bank, but I do like to keep at it. I do struggle with it, but it's more important to just get the listings up and get those sales coming in.
So a lot of people ask, is social media important for reselling? Do I need to start a YouTube channel? Do I need to start an Instagram? I think you're in a pretty interesting situation because you for your jewelry business, I would think that social media is probably like a decently big part of the game, or
Well, Instagram helps,
uh
because it's a very visual based,
yeah.
platform. It's where you see it in a glance, and yeah, tags and titles and stuff helps, but it's more about like networking with people within those communities that are going to be interested in that stuff, and like that does help for that that market, for being an artist, just get it out there. But for eBay reselling, you don't need it. I would consume it. I would recommend
Yeah.
consuming, the information that's out there for free. 'Cause why not? If it's going to help you and make you do better, help you do better.
So
Take advantage of
for
it.
so for reselling for eBay, you don't have an Instagram, you don't have a YouTube, you don't have
Nope.
really yeah. And so what do you say to the people that ask the question like, do I need social media to be successful on reselling in eBay?
No, it's not for everybody
Um,
anyway. you
yeah.
know,
So you,
it's
so
a
you
lot.
said you
It's extra work.
consume Yeah, it is a ton of extra work. A lot.
Yeah.
So you said you consume a lot of content. Is that through like almost like, is it YouTube or Instagram, TikTok?
It's almost all YouTube.
Okay.
I don't
And do
really
you
deviate for
do you
that.
like fall asleep to it, or do you like listen to stuff while you're working, or how do you really consume your
Working,
content?
driving around, processing. There's always some content, and it's always interesting to see and hear what people are doing and picking up, and like you can see what kind of market trends are going on. You always find something new. Always a learning process, and it's a free tool.
So as a local reseller who doesn't have any social media, do you think what me and other YouTubers are doing is good for reselling, or is it bad for reselling? Or is
Well,
it,
I think it's good for the community of
yeah,
resellers, for networking and seeing what's out there, learning new products, new categories, new strategies and whatnot.
yeah, because
That's
there's always the
that's
argument that like we're ruining reselling, or we're ruining categories, or we're depleting a certain bolo, things like that.
no, there's plenty of junk out there.
Dude, there's plenty of junk. So a lot of so that kind of brings me to something I want to talk about for a minute. So you and I are quite legitimately competitors, like, yet we're still friends. And honestly, I honestly think that you and I are beneficial to each other for a few different reasons. Um, but yeah, what do you think? Do you think that you can actually, like, do you think that the average person should tell people that they're a reseller, or should make it apparent, not like wave a sign, but like be okay with people knowing in the thrift store that they're a reseller, things like that?
Absolutely, absolutely. You just be open and honest about it, because it'll pay dividends in the end. Like, you need a box, you just be like, hey, I'm a reseller, I need a box, are you going to use that box? Like, like, it's going to save me $4, can I have it?
Mhm.
Learn people, learn the people around you's interests, and learn what their knowledge base, and glean from it, and take advantage of it. Like, turn your competition into peers.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's the same thing in the art community. You're all doing the same shows together, you're going to run into each other. you know learn their names, learn who they are, watch their booth, give them a snack. You'll be a lot better off. It makes the whole experience a lot easier when you have people to network with.
Yeah.
If
So
you're not, you're all in the same boat.
because in the morning, so everyone has seen, your the back of your head and your back
Right.
profile a
Yeah.
hundred, like a few dozen times on my TikToks and my Facebook Reels, Instagram, things like that. So we don't run, we walk. Some people run, but we quickly get into the thrift store, and then you and I, here's what you sell, and here's what I sell, and there it's like, I don't know, probably
Uh-huh.
like 80
It's a Venn
percent of,
diagram. It
yeah, exactly.
overlaps. Yeah.
Exactly. So you and I are direct competitors, and so if I'm in front of you in the line, you look to where I'm going and you go the other way. And then if you're in
Oh
front of
yeah.
me in the line, I look to where you're going and I go the other way. But at the same time, like, a lot of times I'll find something that I'm like, this will make you like $18, but it has a slower sell through rate, so I'm not going to get it. Do you want it? And you're like, oh yeah, sure. And then sometimes you'll be like, man, I just have too many of these items right now. It's just going to sit in my death pile. Like, do you want it? And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. So even though we're
Yeah.
competing with each other, and you're never just, going to give me the Bose Wave radio that you got before me, like we're still able to mutually benefit each other because of those things.
Right. You can always trade. Trades are always an option.
Trade. Yep, exactly. Because
Yeah.
there's also a lot of ladies, that walk into the thrift store with us that want nothing to do with remote controls or PlayStation 2s or Blu-ray DVDs. And every once in a while they'll grab one and they'll just like come to us with it and be like, "Hey, do you guys want it?" And so
Oh,
I think it's really important to like actually make those relationships and just be friendly with people. And
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like everybody's got an interest, everybody's got something. You're all going to be there together every day. You better, you got to get along, and you'll benefit from those things. Get to learn everybody's name and what they're into and they're like, because you're going to see them every day. You know.
yep, yep, you sure are. So you've been doing this for just over 2 years. If you were to start over today, what kind of changes would you make, and what would you immediately start focusing on?
Well, I would buy less stuff for myself. Like I'm a collector too, so I
Yeah.
always have the excuse of like, oh well, I can just get this and add it to my collection. And you have an overblown collection, you got to scale it down and get rid of it. One of the things I wish I had started, a little better was my actual organization, like getting shelves, getting area, getting square footage
Mm-hmm.
in the house, converted over to it. So 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 instead I had just had my show gear on top of my inventory, on top of my art supplies, all in the studio space, and part of the studio space transitioned into, more storage, and I could have been a lot better at that, and then also less impulse buying on things that I just like for me,
Yep.
and instead focus on just a return, just a better return on the per dollar investment I was making at the time.
So I want to focus a little bit on that first thing you said, because since I've started this, I've just been very, very disciplined and strict. I'm not really a materials guy. I don't really like things. I enjoy collecting basketball cards, but outside of that, I don't really care about having a lot of stuff. And a lot of people always ask me, how do I balance buying things for myself or for my business? And I have to say, sorry, this is super unrelatable, but I just don't buy anything for myself. So how do you balance that? Because a lot of times, like I'll go over and I'll see you going through something, and I'll be like, oh, is that for you, or is it for your eBay store? you know.
Right.
How
Yeah.
do you balance that out?
You learn to let things go,
Yeah.
enjoy it for a little while and then put it up, and when it sells, let it go.
So
Yeah.
I hear a lot of people, YouTubers and non-YouTubers, they'll get something that they really like and it's valuable. Like we'll say it's worth like $80, and they like it so much and they want to see it that they'll just like list it at 150. And if it sells, okay, I have to take that extra $70, but it probably won't sell at 150, so I get to keep it on the shelf for a little longer, or I get to enjoy it for a little bit longer. Have you ever done anything like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you get a whole room full of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you? So you really enjoy toys and video games, retro stuff, especially from your childhood. So I that's from what I've seen, that's like the majority of your inventory and what you sell on eBay, right?
Yeah, it's a big chunk, like it's a pretty big thing because I had just had the knowledge base just already built in. I recognize it, I know its value, and I'll turn it around and can find it, put it up.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a really huge advantage that I wanted to talk about, because you already have that front loaded knowledge. You don't have to learn about a category. You don't have to look up a ton of stuff. Even though I still recommend looking things up, because what's funny is a lot of us resellers, we grew up poor. And so what was nice to us is still pretty low grade. So like I'll find something and I'm like, oh, this is pretty nice. And then I'll look it up and it like has zero resale value whatsoever. I'm like, oh shoot,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, that stuff all has a life cycle, like where it'll come into fashion, and it'll kind of go up, and you get that, that interest in it, and then it'll decline after a while, you know. But it all comes into a rotation, especially with pop culture, toys and collectibles, and even video games.
So would you recommend people that they want to go full time, but they don't like want to be a millionaire. They don't even, I mean, they'd love to make over $100,000 a year, but they don't necessarily need to. would you recommend just sticking with stuff that they know and they like, or are there or would you recommend having that as a base and then going outside of your interests and trying to find things that people are interested in and looking for on eBay? Basically, what I'm saying is, do you think that like someone can make $50,000 a year only on the stuff they like, or do you think they need to go outside of that?
You definitely need to reach outside your comfort zone. You need to constantly be learning to find something, that has value that before, because you're just gonna add to your collective knowledge base and be able to spot it, and know that you can, earn from it.
Hmm.
Definitely
Yeah,
enjoy
this
keep
is this
going.
has been pretty sweet. I feel like this is a pretty fun interview to have. I think that people are really gonna enjoy this. Just because a lot of people do complain, like, oh, why do all these YouTube channels only bring on YouTubers? And I think I don't know. I think it's really great to bring on someone who is doing this full time but isn't doing the social media, because a lot of people. So here, you can confirm this. I get dozens of people a day, every single day, saying I don't actually buy the items, and it's just like on TikTok and Facebook Reels, the 1 minute videos. Everyone's like, show the receipts, show the actual sales.
Yeah,
So can you
yeah,
confirm to
no,
everybody I actually buy stuff every day?
yeah, yeah, it definitely happens. It happens a
Uh,
lot. And it's like it's a real thing. And it's like, yeah, you get a little, you see it and you're like, a little crestfallen, but now I know something new to look for, you know.
yeah, it's good. It's good.
But yeah, it's totally real. We're totally spoiled to have one really great, thrift store and in a decent area for sourcing locally,
Yeah.
but it's legit. Like I'm there every day.
Yep. There every single day. So, how much sourcing do you do outside of thrift stores? I know you probably you do a lot of garage sales that we talk about from time to time,
Oh
but
yeah,
do you
yeah.
do anything outside of those two like main foundational things?
Facebook Marketplace. That's the other sourcing. Is just constantly looking for, the categories that I like. Mostly
Yep.
video games and toys. You know, some media. Some DVDs. And I'll use Facebook Marketplace and just go get it. If it's available. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yard sales, thrifts, and Facebook Marketplace. I don't do any retail arbitrage or anything like that. You know.
Yeah. So, mid to long term, you're at about 350 to 400 active items in your eBay. Are you Do you eventually want to build that store, or are you still just, or are you would you rather just keep selling off into the sunset, selling more than you're listing?
I like to keep it growing, and see where it goes, because eventually I'll find you're always going to find your equilibrium with, the amount of inventory, the amount of spending that you're doing, plus the return. But it's like I want to see where the growth is going to take me, like having a great, first and second quarter here. We pretty much plan on doubling my numbers from last year to this year. As long
That's
as
great.
everything keeps going as good as it is.
Yeah, that's really good.
Definitely want to see
So,
what the future holds.
I talk about all the time how I don't buy items; I just buy profit. So you do a lot of video games, you do a lot of controllers. How many video games do you pass on? And how many controllers do you pass on? Like, are you buying almost every single video game you see, or what's that process like?
Uh, no, no, unless you have to buy in bulk and do big collection buys, that's probably the best way per dollar to get it. But it just takes more upfront and it takes
Hmm.
more processing time. But like once you know a lot of that stuff about what the average dollar is, for that marketplace, I'll pass on, probably 90% or more, maybe even 95% the games I'll pass on, but it all comes down to knowing what's going to trade in, what's going to hold value, what might go up, what's just absolute shovelware. But you know that pretty well. You get comfort zone. We can just look at it and assess the value on the fly now. But but I've had long knowledge base and an intimate relationship with video games since I was a kid. So
Yeah. That's funny. It's funny that you say about only you pass on 95% because recently I've just been talking about how our job is to find the 1 to 5% of things that actually sell. Because even video games is a hot category. It's definitely come down. The pandemic was an awesome time for video games, and video games still sell extremely fast, but not as fast and not for as much money.
yeah,
But
and not everyone's gonna move.
exactly, yeah.
You know.
So yeah, with with video games, which is your main category, you're only picking up about 5 to maybe 8, maybe 10% of the games that you come upon. Does that have to do with the amount of money you make per transaction, or how quickly you'll be able to move it, or a combination of both? Or is it just kind of more of an art than a science for you?
No, it's the latter. It's gotta be able to move, and it's gotta have the right price on it.
Hmm.
And it's gonna have a good return. Unless you think that if you can get it cheap and bundle it up and sell genres together,
Hmm.
and bundle them up. But price has a lot to do with it. You
So
know.
how often do you sell lots and bundles and things like that?
Once I get them together, they seem to move pretty well. You take
Hmm.
a bunch of shooters on the Xbox 360 and put them all together. Like individually, they're only worth like $5 to $10, but make a little pile, turn it, sell it for 40. As long as you're getting, a decent enough price on it. You know.
Yeah, in my videos, people comment that all the time because I'll see like 16 video games, and two of them will sell for like $18 each, and all the rest of them go for $8 free shipping. So I leave all those behind. And people are always like, and then sometimes they're even like $1 or even 50 cents. And everyone's always like, no, dude, you can't leave those behind. Like, just build them up and then sell them in lots because it's only $7, and you can sell 7 of them for 35, 40, $45. So
Yeah. And when you buy in
definitely,
bulk, like bulk
yeah,
collections, you're gonna have them. You're gonna have a lot of commons. It's just gonna be in there. They're good, solid games. Great to play. And somebody that's getting wants to collect for it or just you know replay those, you can just set them in a nice, cheap, affordable stack for them and pass on the savings. Instead of having to get pay $10 for each one. But you're gonna when you buy collections, you're gonna have to get rid of the bulk some way.
yeah.
Take
All
it
right,
to a separate form.
let's talk about a lot of people's favorite thing to talk about in the community and here on YouTube, and that is like returns and scammers and fraudulent dealings on eBay. Um, I don't know if I would say video games is a high scamming category, but I can see that there's definitely more opportunity because of the people that are buying them. Sometimes it's just a 14-year-old kid that buys it, plays it, and then returns it in 28 days or whatever. How often do you see things like that happening in your store?
Well, it's going to happen, but it's not. Like when it does, we're talking. It's a real minor part of your actual like day-to-day operations. It's
Yeah,
like I don't know, one in 100, maybe. I don't know. Even that seems too low. Like maybe 1 in 1,000. Like
yeah,
most of your
yeah. So
transactions are all going to be on the table.
I usually tell people 1 out of 700 are like straight up fraudulent like that, and people always no, it's so much higher than that.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's
but
just it's a really an emotional thing. It sucks. You send out a Simpsons game and they return it and it has a Call of Duty game in it, and they they kept the game that they wanted and sent you back something else. Like that happens from
yeah,
time to time. But it's
the,
such an
the, the most
emotionally damaging thing that it feels like it happens significantly more than it actually does.
yeah, the most common is just like they take their bad copy and put it put it in the case, from your good copy.
Hmm.
You know, but like sometimes you can fix them, sometimes you can't. Like it's not super common, and it's not something you should stress about. You like it will happen. Like
Yeah.
it's just the nature nature of things, but it's not something to hang your hat up on. It's like, yeah, you'll get some BS here, and some get taken advantage of here and there, but it's not super common. It's more uncommon than anything else. You just don't take it personally. You just move on.
So I sell a lot of these bad boys individually. I sell the left and I sell the right and I sell the case all individually. And these have a very, very high, what I would consider like scam rate. Like you were saying, it happens like once every 1,000 or so. I would say with these, it happens 1 out of every 50, and that's like really, really high. So like I've sold, I don't know, probably close to 1,000 of these units over the last year, and so I've had 20 of them come back on day 29, or immediately get a return and I get their broken one back, like things like that. But even in that category, it's only happening 1 out of 50 times. So if you can just get your inventory low enough, especially with, I mean, the sell-through rate on this stuff is just wild. Like I talk about fast sell-through rate items. If I could somehow just get 1,000 of these every week, then I wouldn't even have an eBay store. They would just turn over. I mean, I would, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So I guess what we're trying to say is, you and I, we deal in these categories where it has a higher return rate and it has a potential to have scam rates. But I remember like my first 2 months of eBay, I sent out a receiver similar to that one, and it came back, and I opened it up because I had a hunch, and a few of the so the laser disc was gone, and then that particular unit had a belt, and the belt was gone. So I'm like, okay. So that was my first experience with that. And then a lot of times, sometimes we just need to be a bit more educated on the products ourselves, because a lot of times I'll send out a camera like this one. So I'll ship out a camera like this, completely functional, works great. And then people will say, hey, this camera's broken. And I'll say, the first thing I'll ask them is I'll say, how big was the SD card that you put into it? And they're like, oh, 256 megabytes. I'm like, okay, I mean gigabytes. I'm like, okay, so this is from 2004. So I can only read up to 4 gigabytes. So you can return the item if you'd like to, or you can just, throw in a 4 gigabyte or less, and they're like, oh my gosh, it worked, thanks. And then you never hear from them again. So sometimes we jump to the conclusions that people are trying to scam us, when really it's just like, no, these people are actually having like some issues, or they're not educated on the product. I think you've actually told me a story before where someone messaged you and you like went onto Google real quick, found the answer, and then sent it to them. Or am I thinking of somebody else?
Yeah. When it comes to like needing like drivers for a printer, or instruction books for a bread machine, like you can Google it, PDF it, send them the link, and you save yourself the hassle. So instead of having an unusable item that they're going to return, turn it around and be like, here, this took me all of 30 seconds to provide you with the answers that you need. Like especially with like scanners, like old scanners, old printers, like they need drivers. You got to go to the manufacturer website, and you got to download the software directly on your computer. But instructions, that's something that I've done, looked up for people, and just send them the link to it.
I sold a really expensive bed remote control, those like fancy beds that are thousands of dollars, and you can adjust it with a remote control. And someone said, hey, I'm returning this because I can't get it to work. And then I said, okay. And I sent them the PDF. I'm like, just follow these instructions. If it still doesn't work, you can totally send it back to me. And then they just replied like, I'm a 71-year-old man, and I really apologize because I did not understand the remote correctly. But after the PDF, after the information you sent me, I was able to get it functioning. Thank you very much. I will leave a positive review.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it's the
how
customer
so
service aspect, you know.
yeah, so I was gonna ask how important is customer service and how much time do you spend per day or per week, per month doing customer service?
Not much, you know, like
Yeah.
not much is required outside of like good photos, you know,
Hmm.
and just answering questions in a timely fashion, you know. Like if somebody has a legit question or concern, it's like get on top of it, you know. It's gonna take you a minute,
So you said
you know.
legit question. How often
Yeah.
do you get non-legit questions?
You know, they just seem to feel like they're more common, but they're really not.
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, like you get some goofball offers or, you know, just, you know, some ridiculous chit chat or something. You just ignore it and move
Yeah,
on.
I just got a return for some. I suck at pronouncing this one. I think it's Bulgari, BVLGaria. That it's a designer brand for some eyeglass frames. And the lady like sent me like 13 messages. Not all in a row, but like she sent me a message, I sent one back. She would send two, I'd respond. She'd send like two more, I'd respond. I'm like, oh, this is just gonna end up in a return. And then she got them and she sends me a message. I'm like, ah, here comes the return. And she says, thank you so much. I love these. They're amazing. I'm like, oh, sweet. And she left a positive feedback. 3 days after that, she opens up a return and sends it back. And I'm like, and they're the exact same condition. Like she didn't like pull a fast one on me or whatever. Um, but it's just sometimes, and people talk about this all the time, you can just kind of tell that, like, just by the questions that people are asking, they're going to return the item once they get it. So have you run into those situations, and how do you kind of handle that? Do you just like, hey, you know what, I'm just going to sell you the item and hope for the best, or do you try to lean them away from buying your item?
I trust my instincts when it comes to a lot of stuff because,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes you just gotta let the sale go. If you get a bad feeling about the way somebody's, you know, asking questions or something like that, there's a block list for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, avoid the return in the first place. You know, just like, sorry, I don't like the way you're talking to me. Like, I think you're just trying to qualify this for something. You know, or just, you know, just move on with
I
that.
like
No,
I like what you just said there, like qualifying it, because some people are asking those questions that if we're emotional, we feel like they're annoying questions. But for the type of stuff that you and I sell, like I'll sell a DVD VCR combo player and they'll be like, now I just include this, I include more pictures because I know these questions are coming from these Amazon sellers, but they'll be like, hey, can you include a picture of the side just so I can make sure that there aren't any scratches? And at first I thought that they were just like being annoying and OCD, like who cares if it has a few scratches. But on Amazon, if it has any sort of scratches, then you have to mark down the condition. And that can be the difference of 80 to $150 sometimes on a DVD VCR combo player, things like that. So sometimes people are qualifying it because you know what, like, hey, they're going to buy this from me for $100 and then they're going to sell it for a few hundred. So I make 100, they make 100, everyone's happy. But if I would have been like annoyed, like, oh, I'm not going to send you additional photos, or get away from me, scammer, then I miss out on $100 sale.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because it's some people are legitimately asking questions, and some people are should not buy used items. I use that line sometimes, and I try to make it sound as professional and as least sassy as possible. But like sometimes I'll say, hey, based on the amount of questions that you're asking and the type of questions that you're asking, I wouldn't recommend buying products in used condition. I would go buy something new. And some people get upset at that. But like it's they just like they ask so many questions, and it's like, listen, you want a brand new item for 70% off, and you're not going to get that. This is a used item. So you got to go find a new item, buddy.
yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, so do you have customer service as like part of your day, or do you just like, oh, I have a question, I'm gonna answer it. Oh, I have a return, I'll take care of that right now. How do you, or do you set time in the morning or things like that?
Well, part of customer service is just making sure that you're answering their questions before the sale. Like
Yeah.
before they even ask you a question, make sure that your pictures are telling them the quality of your product. And if there's issues with it, make sure you've got descriptions. It's like most people aren't going to read it anyway, but if you show them what the problem is, and you're already doing the customer service end before it gets to that point. So just making sure you're having quality listings, is going to be that aspect that I will spend time on for customer service. Outside of that, just takes a few minutes, answer
Mhm.
questions, help people out. Like I don't get a ton of it, you know, but when I do, it's like, yes, it's very important. I will do a missing mail report. If their stuff hasn't shown up, I'll go to the post office and ask them what happens. I'll follow through and give constant updates. Whatever it takes. But that's just part of the job. Um, but I don't spend any significant part of my day outside of just building customer service into the listings itself.
So you've talked a lot already about how important photos are. Um, do you place the same amount of focus on photos, item description, item specifics, and title, or are all four of those equally weighed, or are a few of them more important than the other? So there's photos, title, item specifics, and description. What's your kind of view on all four of those? So photos, it sounds
That's
like you're like, hey, make this like do all of the work here so they almost have zero questions because of the quality of the photos. Now, what
Yeah.
about title?
Title is important, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, but just make sure it's good, not full of, not leave them off. Make sure it's spelled correctly.
Yeah.
If it's a parts item or it's got a problem, got to put watch video or read something, or even take a big picture and point at whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
Like if it's got a defect, like point at it, circle it. Yeah, but it's pretty much in that descending order. Photos are priority, titles next, then the rest. Which is like if it's got specifics that people are looking for, those certain features, which is usually just in a real technical sense, for like consumer electronics and cameras, that'll be real specific. But then description, it's like, oh, you really need that if there's a problem, you know or just some reassurance. Like if you're selling some plush, let them know that you don't smoke in the house. Let them know that it doesn't stink, and it's not wet and soggy. Just for that peace of mind, because that'll come up with like plush and clothes and stuff. It's like, yeah, I don't smoke. I don't.
Uh-huh.
Like this plush isn't doused in, perfume or something like that.
Uh-huh. And so you said you put 4 parts in the title when it's broken. Do you ever use things like tested, clean, fast shipping, anything like that in your titles?
I like if there's room, you could put works tested, for the electronics, just for that extra little reassurance,
Mhm.
because it's up at the top, because
Yeah.
they're not gonna really get down to the bottom, but even with like parts and repair, sometimes you get people that like they'll buy it and I'll ask them, I'll be like, hey, this is for parts, right? It's
Yeah,
broken.
I do that a lot too, especially for
Just to
cameras.
save myself a return, just like,
Uh-huh.
hey, just make sure this isn't 100%, but
Especially for digital cameras, because I'll put item description, condition, 4 parts, not working. I'll put in the title in all caps 4 parts, and then into the description I'll put 4 parts not working. And people will still think that they're getting a $180 Canon camera for $19.98 plus shipping. I just don't, So now I've just gotten to the point. It's kind of annoying for some of the buyers, but I'll message them and be like, I just checking to make sure you understand that the camera is broken, correct?
absolutely, yeah. Like you'd be surprised. I had a Vitamix that was broken, like a blender top, and it was all
Mhm.
rusted out and cranky. And I had like 4 people buy it, and each one I messaged, and I was like, hey, this is broken, right? And they're like, oh no, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just a really good deal. And I'm like, well, and I'm like, do you want to cancel? And they're like, absolutely. And I'm like, great. And then the 5th person was like, hey, no, this is broken, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm gonna fix it. And I'm like, okay, cool. And
Because a
then
lot of
it's
people like being completely honest, like a lot of people don't really shop on eBay. Like it only accounts for like 3.5% of online e-commerce. Like a lot of people just don't use eBay. But a lot of people know about eBay and they think that eBay is just like this place to get a really good deal. So they look something up on Amazon and it's like $160. And then they go to eBay and they see that it's like $80 and they're like, oh, that's a good deal. But then also there's some that are like $25. And they've heard like, oh, eBay is the place to get a really good deal. So I'll buy this one for $25 and they just don't see that it's broken. And they don't understand, like, I guess we could call it like the culture of eBay, because there's a ton of people that have been shopping on eBay for 28 years and they know what 4 parts means. Like I've sold things like, so I've sold one of these. It was broken for parts, and I had this girl start a return, and she said, "I thought for parts meant that it was just one part. I was just getting this one part to put into my because like some people like legitimately just don't understand the lingo and stuff." And people are trained to be like, oh, if you want a really good deal, go to eBay. And so they see, oh, it's $25 for this $80 item. And it's like, no, it's broken, man. It's broken.
Right. Especially with first time buyers,
Uh-huh.
you can look at their seller rating and be like, are you sure you want this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. When it comes to electronics, I definitely, and my future plans for my eBay business is to really grow this thing. Like when I move up north, like I want to have a warehouse and I want to have an eBay room and an Amazon room, and I want to have employees, and I want to hire someone full time to just do customer service, and every single electronic to just text them, just making sure you understand the condition of this item before we send it, all that stuff, because dealing in electronics it is one of the drawbacks of electronics. Is I sell a lot of things that like this Denon receiver, I haven't tested it yet, but I'm pretty sure that it works. And there's a really good chance that one of the dials, you have to jiggle it for it to connect and start working. And so like that's something that like we have to do in the category of electronics, and people don't freaking read that in the description. And so I'm just gonna have someone full time saying, hey, did you notice that you have to jiggle the dial to get it to connect and function? Oh yeah,
Right.
I saw that. Yeah, ship it out. Okay. So,
Well,
sometimes
the
it just
advent of video really helps illustrate problems with used antique electronics and stuff. Stuff that's like 20 years old. Because those are really there's like 2 barriers for the electronics problems, and it's like either the technology is really old and outside of its life cycle, or it's really modern and tech savvy to get it to function properly. And so those are the 2 kind of problematic areas with like consumer electronics.
So do you use videos in your listings pretty often?
When I need to really illustrate, like if it makes a funny sound or doesn't sound right or doesn't operate right, you can just take a video, and literally it's the second one after the picture, because most people are going to look at least at 2 pictures before they make their final decision. I mean, it's not an absolute, but they're more likely to, and that'll directly illustrate what the little idiosyncrasy is, or whatever the little defect it might have, is going to be right there in the video. Especially where it comes to like sound and function, or it's got a weird hum or something. But then you can illustrate it in a video, and you got like 30 seconds to be like, here, this is going to take you a tour on what this thing really is like.
Yeah, so early on, I sold, and I still sell, a ton of these receivers and 5-disc changers and things like that. And you can put tested working, but just have the picture of it without it plugged in and turned on. And people will just like assume that it doesn't work, because it happens. Like people don't test things and they say they're tested, and then buyers have a bad experience. And so there are a lot more that some will just never come back to eBay. Some will keep coming back, but they'll only buy specific listings and things like that, or they'll ask these questions that we've been talking about. And then I learned that I would still get sales, but like I would have something that would have like a 100% sell-through rate, but it would still take like 6 months to sell. And then I just realized, oh, all I gotta do is plug it in, and show that those digital words that say DVD/open or open close or Sony welcome, like all they got to do is just see those and they're like, oh sweet, yep, like 85% chance that this actually works because they're showing me that it at least turns on, so they actually tested it. But now I'm actually thinking, you're talking about with these videos, one of the biggest issues with 5-disc players, I have 2 of them right down there. Both of them sell for over $100. With you talking about these videos, I actually think I want to start including a video where I show me pushing the opening button and showing that whole tray come out. Because those of you that aren't familiar with these 5-disc players, the tray is like 18 inches by 12 inches, and it comes all the way out, and then you can put your 5 discs in, and then it rotates. And just because it powers on and just because it plays disc 1 does not mean it will play disc 2 and disc 5, and it does not mean that it will come out and then go back in properly. And so there's even more issues with these. So now I'm actually thinking with this video, I'm going to include some videos of showing it actually, that it actually comes out on the tract and that it actually spins correctly. It's a good idea.
Yeah, you're helping the customer qualify the sale before they even make the purchase. You know, you're just going to answer the questions before ahead of time.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, returns will go down and sales will be, because what I'm selling already has 80% plus sell-through rate.
Sure.
But if I can show them, hey, here's a video of it working properly, I think I can actually double it. I think I can get a 160% sell-through rate, things like that. So
yeah, it's a very visual based, you know, like culture now, where everybody's consuming visual content, you know, and so tell them that it works by showing them that it works.
Because people will ask me all the time, like, do I need to include a video? Will it help with the algorithm? And first of all, I just hate the word algorithm. I really do. People focus way too much on this stupid algorithm when it's like what we're talking about actually helps the customer. The customer wants to see the tray come out and rotate. That's what the customer, the algorithm doesn't care. Like, so no, you don't, I do need a video for that. But do I need a video for a shirt? No, you just lay it flat and take a picture. You don't need a video of the shirt. Like, what do you just take a video and then just like do this for the algorithm? Like, no, like I don't understand that. So people ask me that all the time. Like, do I need to include videos? And I always say no, unless it's absolutely necessary. But yeah, if you sell electronics, just the photo with the lights on significantly improves the sell-through rate. And now I'm thinking about implementing these videos. And I think that'll help the sell-through rate even further. So
yeah, a little 30-second clip will, you know, that you can do with your phone. You know, you just put in there.
even 7 seconds, you know, just like, hey, this comes out and goes back in, you know.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't take any technical skills. You're not going to have to edit it or Photoshop it or, you know, run it through a mixing program or anything. It's just like, you know, just add it on there. You know, it's not going to take
Sweet.
long.
Well, yeah, I'll just ask a few more kind of foundational questions, and then we'll get going. So, cross listing. You only have 350 to 400 items, so I'm sure cross listing would help, but it isn't like absolutely necessary with your smaller store and your faster sell through rate. So do you cross list at all, or?
No, not currently. It's like I want to start selling a few things on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah,
You know, I
local
just
or
haven't set. Yeah, you haven't set aside the time. I'd like to cross list some stuff, but it's not a high priority right now. You know,
yeah.
like it's kind of a down the road to kind of, you know, build the business. You know, it's like, you know, more eyes you get on something, the more chance it's going to sell faster. You know,
Yeah.
find the right buyer, you know, in the right marketplace. You know.
Did you mean just local Facebook Marketplace or also
like just local?
ship?
Yeah,
Just local, yeah.
yeah,
Just your
local.
bigger stuff, or the stuff that people need to know that it works before they buy it, kind of thing.
Well, if I notice that there's an open marketplace for a particular system or something like that, you know, and see if there's any interest locally. You know, nobody's selling a Sega system. Put one up locally and see if there's an interested buyer. You know, big, big, heavy, bulky stuff, that there's a marketplace for it. Might as well see if it'll go locally. But that's it's not going to be like hundreds of items, and more thinking of like maybe 20.
Mhm.
you know, like I do see the value of cross listing, on multiple platforms. Um, but as of right now, it's just like I'd rather build my store up first and then worry about diversifying onto more platforms.
So let's say you get your eBay store to 500 and you can't pass it. Combination of really good sell-through rate items and a combination of just not being able to find enough. Have you considered like at around 500 would you cross list, or do you think it really becomes like a good thing to do after 1,000 or 2,000? Have you ever kind of thought about that number?
No, I don't know if it has to do with the numbers necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
for me personally, but maybe more about like time management. Like, it's like if I get up to that point, you know, like I'm getting pretty steady sales. It's like, maybe kind of up in the air. Like it's not really a numbers based thing that I really thought that much into. I don't know if
It sounds
I
like
don't know
you're
if there's
interested.
a benchmark for it. You
Yeah.
know, you
It
know.
sounds like you're interested in it. It's just not quite necessary for your business. You're doing great without it.
Right.
And it would probably speed things up for you, but like there's no, with just how things are rolling with your finances and the way you're growing
Yeah.
your business, it just sounds like it's not absolutely needed
Focus on
yet.
what's in front of me first.
Yeah,
We'll see
yeah,
what's
because a
over
lot
the
of times
next hill
we
when we
just
get there.
get squirrel and I don't know, just the psychology of humans. We feel like we want to spend money on things that we just don't need to, you know. I think there's a lot of benefits to buying softwares and services and things like that. But a lot of times it's just not necessary, and a lot of times we just want to spend the money for some reason. So I like that you're just like, yeah, like cross listing sounds great, but it's just not for me yet. It just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense yet. So
There's no bit of software or AI or anything that's going to be a magic wand that's going to make you a better seller other than your own personal discipline. Are you establishing good routines? Are you practicing good habits, with your business? Are you consistent? Are you maintaining that? Are you happy with it? Are you not happy with it? Well, like, it's not working out for you, man, do something else. Like you can always change. You can always try something else. You can always, don't be afraid of that, because that's just going to challenge you as a person and make you grow a little more, you know. But I wouldn't get hung up on looking for a magical tool that's gonna change
that's
your
what we're all
life. It's like change from within, first, you know,
oh, you're starting to get a
start with
little
yourself.
philosophical and controversial there, huh? I like
Well,
it.
like as an artist, one thing that I always learned very early on is that the quality of your paintbrush isn't going to improve your ability to paint a better picture. And
Yeah.
you can go, you can get a $50 pad of paper, but the most fundamental stuff is done on just newsprint and charcoal.
I'll never
you know,
forget. There was this kid that was good enough to make the baseball team in high school, which is a tough thing to do, especially in the United States. We love baseball, and Utah, even specifically in my town here in St. George, like baseball is like it's super popular, and kids really like it. So it's not easy to make the baseball team. So this kid, he was good enough to make the baseball team, but he wasn't like a top player on the team. But he had the $1,800 bat and the $700 baseball glove and the $300 cleats. And then the second best kid on the team had the $48 bat and the $29 glove. And he just like came from a really humble family, but he was just really good at baseball. And then the best player on the team, who went on to play D1 and was going to go to the MLB, but he tore his rotator cuff. Poor guy. he had both. He was really good at baseball, and his parents had a ton of money, so it worked out really well for him. But like you were saying, you don't need the $1,800 bat to hit home runs. You know, you just need to be good at what you do. So you're full time. You are. Would you say you're an everything seller, or you focus on 4, 5, 6, 7 categories?
Right now, it's pretty much like there's 6 categories, that are really strong. Video games, consumer electronics, toys, collectibles, a little, and then like home, what is it, like blenders and stuff, kitchen appliances,
You got a blend tech.
but I'm not afraid to pick up a nice looking shirt or a decent pair of shoes, a lady's purse or wallet, like there's value out there, like if I see it, sure, I'm not going to leave $100 on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And
then are you a phone lister or a desktop lister?
A phone, but you need the computer to really get the video to,
Yeah, I use my laptop to run my business, but I list with my phone for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the phone is one piece of equipment I can't do without.
Yeah. Well, sweet man, this has been really fun. I really hope that people like this. People complain all the time that it's just a society of YouTubers and influencers that help each other out or whatever. But it was really fun having you on and talking to someone who is actually doing this full time and doesn't, is on YouTube today, but doesn't have a YouTube channel or influence or anything like that. So,
right. Happy to contribute.
Yeah. So I guess maybe you have 1 or 2 strong opinions or really good tips. What do you say to people in your position and beginners that are coming up behind us about reselling in eBay?
Oh, don't be afraid. It is like you're gonna stumble and make mistakes, but you just continue going forward. Just keep at it. Just be disciplined. Check to see your prices and everything. Make sure it's good and gonna make a good return. It's gonna be worth your time. But don't be afraid. It's not a monster. It's not gonna eat you.
I like it. I say that in a similar way, but different. Like, just don't let your emotions rule your business. Let the numbers and the logic rule your business. It isn't like it is. A lot of people are afraid of scammers, or a lot of people feel like these fraudulent returns are much more reoccurring than they actually are. Or some people are afraid that they are going to buy something for $100 and not be able to get their money back, or that but you just can't let the emotions stop you from making a ton of money. So I like it.
Yeah, don't let it get in the way of your success. You're gonna have bumps on the road, whatever you're doing. Just keep your head on straight. Keep going.
Well, do you wanna share your maybe your Etsy store, or if anyone's interested in custom art, just if you want to finish off by saying kind of what it is that you actually design and sell, and then if you want to throw a plug in there if anyone wants to buy your stuff.
Yeah. If you need some custom jewelry, you can go to DLC Gems on Etsy. Like you can send me a rock and I'll turn it into a ring or a pendant for you.
Good stuff. All right, man. Well, and anything you wanted to say, or any other last questions you have for me?
Just thanks for having me on, man. I'm happy to to be able to contribute. And hello, YouTube community.
Yeah, this was really fun. I definitely want to have some other local guys here in town hop on the podcast. And then you guys out there that don't have YouTube channels but listen to this and other podcasts and sell on eBay, if you would like to be on an episode like this, all you need is a smartphone. Leif here, he has an Android. I just sent him a link. He clicked on it, didn't have to download any apps. All you need is just a camera that you can point at your face. So if any of you would like to be on a future podcast, you can email me at jwrightflips@gmail.com, or you can comment in the section below. Sunny and I would love to have you guys come be on the island with us. So I really appreciate you coming out here, Leif. This is really fun.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
And if you guys haven't yet, go join the community on Facebook. It's just the Reseller Island podcast. We don't have anything to sell you guys. It's not a paid community. It's just an island where we all can come together and be coworkers and get through this reselling journey that we're all on, all the ups and downs. Sweet. Well, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for coming to the island.
Yeah, man. We'll see you Monday.
Yep.